Alrighty, folks, we are now live on my Twitter and the Fireside Knicks YouTube, and in just a moment, we will be on the Fireside Knicks Instagram as well. Hope everybody is having a very splendid Monday. The Knicks just won last night in a blowout win over the Washington Wizards, and that's what I'm going to come on here to discuss. I won't make it as long of a stream as I did the other day, but I'm going to, talk about some things. Of course, the Wizards game first and foremost. I'll start with that. I'm just glad they got a complete win. Lately it just felt like against these like bottom feeding teams, they have kind of been playing with their food a little bit. Not exactly kind of, locking in for all 48. And while at the start of this game, it kind of felt like I wouldn't say it was exactly the same way, but they were definitely off to they started the game off strong and then they kind of slipped up a little bit. But then really after like the first time out in the second quarter, they pretty much just took off and really went off from there at that point. So, it was a very dominant win. They won by 30 plus points. That's I think now the eighth time they've done that this year, which is just amazing. I mean, they've had a lot of big games. I don't know if it's eight times that they've got won by 30 plus. I could be wrong about that, but I know they've had a decent amount of 30-point wins, which is very impressive for a Knicks team that's really trying to find its footing in time for the postseason. Obviously, the playoffs are only a few weeks away, so they got to do as much as they can to really get going and just get everything in rhythm and have everyone's role figured out in time for the playoffs. But looking at this game in particular, Karl Anthony Towns once again having another big game, 26 points, 16 rebounds. Jalen Brunson had a very solid game as well with 23 points. It was an all-around team effort. They had many guys contribute in many different ways. Mitchell Robinson had a double-double with 10 points, 10 rebounds. Mohamed Diawara even hit a couple three-pointers as well. Tyler Kolek is a guy I really want to talk about real quick because Tyler Kolek, he started the day in the G League with the Westchester Knicks, getting some more reps in, and he had 42 points and 11 assists and hit 9 threes in that game, which is just unbelievable in itself. And then, later in the day, he joins the Knicks to sit on the bench really and watch the, game against Washington. And with them being up by so much, he was able to get on the court in garbage time, and he pretty much picked up where he left off. He hit three-pointers, pretty much pulling from anywhere. I don't know who Tyler Kolek was feeling like yesterday, but he had one of the biggest days that anyone could really ever have if you look at it from that perspective. To play a game in the G League and then go off in that game and then join the Knicks or the NBA team later on that day and pretty much continue that super strong effort. That's very impressive stuff. Tyler Kolek has been kind of someone who, unfortunately for him, has fallen out of the rotation just because of the kind of logjam of guards that the Knicks have on the roster and kind of just the amount of the numbers game. Really, it's not necessarily about his play; it's just the numbers game, as I just mentioned. And he has shown that he's capable of just staying ready and being ready to make a positive impact when being asked to do so. He, again, hasn't been playing a whole lot. And I'm going to pull up the graphic real quick of just what he did in the NBA and the G League combined yesterday. 53 points combined, 12 assists, 19 of 26 from the floor, 12 of 17 from three. Obviously, the bulk of this happened in the G League, but still, like the fact that he was able to have a big game like that in the G League and then come to the NBA and just continue that, it's really it's impressive for him in itself, but it shows too that he's a hard worker. He's always ready. He's always looking to make a big impact when necessary, and I'm happy for him. And I really hope that maybe if he continues to flash some impressive outings, that he can possibly find his way into some meaningful minutes once again. Do I think it's really going to happen? Probably not. I mean, I don't see a situation where they're going to realistically sit a guy like Jose Alvarado. I don't see that happening. But what I can see is, just Kolek being ready. And if a guy goes down with an injury or a guy needs some rest, that Kolek can step in and provide an impact. We've already seen Jordan Clarkson do that. Jordan Clarkson came back into the rotation when they were dealing with some other injuries and, of course, just needing a spark on offense. And he's pretty much got his rotation spot back full, and he's still providing a positive impact to this day. I mean, yesterday he was very solid as well. It's been really impressive stuff for Jordan Clarkson's sake, but for Tyler Kolek, I'm really hoping that he just continues to stay ready because who knows, maybe we will need him at some point if a guy goes down or anything like that. Obviously, health is going to be a major, major thing to really monitor with everybody as the season comes to a close. We have 10 games left on the schedule, and now that we are 10 games left, I want to also pull up the standings real quick because there's a big standings update. And I posted this earlier today on the Fireside Knicks Instagram and on Twitter as well. But as you can see, the New York Knicks are only a half a game behind the Boston Celtics for that second seed. Entering yesterday, it was 1.5, and then they won the game against Washington, and then Boston lost against Minnesota without Anthony Edwards, and they had a really bad fourth quarter. Just complete awful fourth quarter Boston had. But that's besides the point. The fact that they're now this close, I mean, they have a chance. Chance to take that spot is right in front of them right now because Boston has Oklahoma City next, and the New York Knicks have the New Orleans Pelicans, and then the Charlotte Hornets after that. The Knicks have an opportunity to take that second seed right now. And what I think is important to note as well is that the Knicks own the tiebreaker over Boston. They're right now. I know they still have one more game left, but they've won 2 games already over them. They're 2-1 against them this year, and they have one more game left. But because they have the better division record, because of the win against Brooklyn, they've clinched the tiebreaker over Boston. So, with that being said, the Knicks at most need to just try to tie with Boston in the standings because then they will be awarded the second seed and not the Boston Celtics. Do I think the Knicks will get the 1 seed? I mean, it's possible, but I don't know if there's enough time. I mean, they're still 5 games back, and if the Pistons just kind of slog their way through, even with Cade Cunningham out, they're going to end up as the 1 seed. So I'm not thinking about the 1 seed as much as I am the 2 seed right now. I do think the 2 seed is very much within reach. It's very possible. And I think right now the Knicks are in the driver's seat to take that 2 seed. I think they have a big opportunity to take it. So that's what I'm hoping that they can just continue to win these games. They've won 6 in a row. Obviously, not all 6 have been very pretty wins, but wins are wins at the end of the day. We'll take them anytime we get. And I'm really just looking forward to the playoffs at this point. I think we're very close to clinching. The Knicks have really separated themselves at this point from the 5th seed. So it's pretty much at this point whether they're getting 2, 3, or 4, and they're 2.5 games up on the 4th-seeded Cleveland Cavaliers. So as long as they continue to win games, it's pretty much 2 or 3 at this point. And I very much can see them possibly getting that um, the 2 seed. I think it's very possible. I very much can see it happening, and I'm looking forward to that possibly happening. They need that 2 seed because I want them to have home court advantage through not only the first round, of course, but in the second round as well. Because if they get the 3 seed, and then let's say they got to play Boston in the second round, they wouldn't be at home court advantage. It would be majority of the games at TD Garden. So I want to see the Knicks get home court advantage because they have been very good at home this year versus on the road. I know they're over 500 obviously in both places, but they're much better at home than they are on the road. It's like not even close. So they need to get that home court advantage. That is the big thing right now. If they can manage to get home court advantage, then that would be very good for their sake of making a deep run this year. And of course, health, of course, getting Deuce McBride back will be huge. We still don't have a firm update on when Deuce McBride will return to the lineup. We saw him obviously practicing the other day, but he hasn't really, there's not much of a change in terms of his timeline. So until we know more about that, we'll kind of just have to play wait and see mode on him. But I'm very excited to see him possibly return very soon. But yeah, and other than that, I do want to pull up some keys that I brought up, and I'm going to dissect those a little bit more. Some of the other things we've talked about so far in this stream. I posted this not too long ago on both my Twitter and, of course, the Fireside Knicks Instagram. But these are some keys that I've come up with for playoff success. And obviously, these are not exclusive. These aren't the only keys. There's many other keys as well that will um, play a huge part. There's a lot of different other things that they will have to do. But first and foremost, a healthy and athletic Mitchell Robinson. I think that's a huge key right there because we saw last year Mitchell Robinson came back at the end of last season, made a huge impact upon his return, and then he was great. He made a huge impact. He was arguably the team's most important player during the Celtics series. So I think having him healthy will be huge this time around, and I think increasing his minutes will also be very effective and impactful for us. So I'm really hoping they're able to do that. And for people that are commenting as well, trust me, I will get to your comments. I promise. I saw somebody say that I am AI and not answer comments. No, I'm not AI. I will answer comments. I promise I will get to that. I just want to get to these other things that are important to note before I do get to that. But anyway, moving on. Another key that I want to talk about. Josh Hart taking and making more threes. I think that is huge. We've seen in the past 2 games he's been taking more threes, and of course he's been making them. He's in fact made his last 9 threes, which I think is just tremendous. The fact that he is, feeling himself again from 3-point range is huge. So with that being said, I think him actually willing to take shots and put the ball up instead of just not looking at the rim and looking for someone else to do something, I think that changes a lot because it makes the offense more fluid, more efficient, more cohesive. You need to have spacing out there. Good spacing will win you more games. So with that being said, Hart needs to continue to take as many threes as he's taking and of course making them as well. You don't want him out there just chucking, but now he's up to over 40%, so that's really nice to see and I just hope it continues. But, moving on to the third key, Mikal Bridges making a consistent impact. And I think we've talked about Mikal Bridges quite a lot over the course of these past few streams, but I will say last night he was very productive. I know he didn't light up the stat sheet. He had 14 points in 30 minutes, but it was an efficient 14, and he was a team high plus 28. So he was making an impact on both ends of the floor. Granted, I know it's the Wizards, but I don't really care if they were playing the Westchester Knicks for all I care. I needed Mikal to just have a good game against anybody because it was pretty much every game that he was just not playing really well at all. And him playing well last night is big. I'm not saying I need him to drop 30 points. Obviously, I would love for him to get that many points, but I don't need that to consider him as a productive player. If he can give me an efficient, like 14 to 15 or whatever it was last night, if he can give me that and provide a good impact defensively on a regular basis, then that's all I need out of him. We have guys that can score. We have Brunson, Towns, Ananobi, Shamit, Hart, you name it. We have guys that can score. I'm not worried about that. I want Bridges to, of course, be efficient, but I want him to be impactful on both ends. If he's inefficient on offense and he's just lackluster on defense or he's kind of just meh on defense, then what is he really out there for? You know what I mean? So him being consistent and him making an impact in the postseason is going to be huge. And a lot of people are saying that they're expecting Bridges to turn it up in the playoffs, and I really hope so because last year he did, of course, make those huge plays in Boston and had an impact. So I'm really hoping that that can continue onto this year. Moving on to the next one, though. Karl-Anthony Towns playing like an all-star. It's a basic key, but it's something that we, of course, need. We've seen it since the All-Star break. He has been playing at a very high level. He's been the team's best player, probably their most consistent player since the All-Star break concluded. Jalen Brunson, of course, has been fine, but he's had a couple ups and downs with his efficiency. So, they've been leaning on Karl-Anthony Towns a little bit more, and he's been productive. And if they can continue to get that kind of production out of him, then that's huge. And I think the big thing that we really need to talk about with Towns, the defensive improvement, man. He has been such a force on defense since the All-Star break, and it's really remarkable because Towns is the guy who pretty much his whole career has sucked on defense. It's just flat out true. He's never been that good as a defender really at all throughout his career, but since the All-Star break, he has been tremendous on that end of the floor. And I think maybe, just maybe, he's found something on defense. I don't know what it was before. He was fouling way too much before in the past, and he was always getting a little over aggressive, but now he's actually using his body and he's not fouling. I think that's huge. He's actually becoming a force. So if they can get that out of Towns, they'll be in a really good spot, and it raises the ceiling for this Knicks team tremendously. And of course, the final key that I listed here is the bench depth needing to provide a spark. Of course, the bench isn't going to be getting as many minutes as they are right now in the postseason. So maybe to some people this isn't a super important key, but I think this is important because if there's a guy that's struggling out there like a starter, like I don't know, like Brunson if he's struggling, or like Ananobi or somebody, you got to hope that a guy off the bench such as like Shamit or Clarkson, Alvarado, Deuce, whatever, can come in and provide a spark and uplift the team a little bit. You need that. Good teams are deep teams. The Oklahoma City Thunder last year won the title because of their depth. The Indiana Pacers, they made it to the finals because of their depth. If the Knicks can, have a deep team and have guys consistently come in, make impact, even Muhammad Diawara could potentially find his way into some playoff minutes and potentially make an impact as well. So if they can get that out of those guys, that goes a long way towards their ultimate goal. That goes a long way. So those are some basic keys. Obviously, a bigger key, of course, Jalen Brunson needs to be himself. He needs to be, in playoff mode like he always is, usually is. And of course, the defense needs to continue to be tight. They have the best defensive rating in the league since mid-January, and it's continued that way. So it's been about 2 months now of having the league's best defensive rating. So I need that to continue into the playoffs. I need the three-point defense to remain tight. There's been a couple times during these past few games where the three-point defense has been a little shaky, but it's going to happen at times. Sometimes it's going to be, ups and downs. There's ebbs and flows to it. So I just need consistency. If I can get the consistent defensive effort, they'll be in a really good spot to make a deep run. Those are some keys that I really wanted to discuss, though, and those are some of the basics that I really wanted to just go over on this stream. But I think now is a good point for me to kind of turn it over to the comments section, which I'm going to take a look at. I know a lot of people have been commenting on Instagram, so I will get to those. I just need a water break, so let me do that real quick. And yes, I have the Gatorade cup, so nice little touch there. All right, so now I'm taking a look at some of the comments on Instagram. I know a handful of people have been commenting. I haven't gotten to them because of, I wanted to get to my main points of this stream, but now I'll turn it over to you guys. I'm gonna scroll up a little bit just to kind of get to the earlier comments because I know I'm looking right now. There was a good amount of comments here, so let's see. Someone said need to close out harder on opponent threes. Yeah, that's pretty much what I had just mentioned as well. They need to remain tight on that end. They've been overall good on that end lately, but as I mentioned in the past few games, there's been some times where they've kind of had some lapses, leaving guys open, playing soft coverage on the perimeter. So you don't want that. You want them to be able to stay solid on that end and not overcommit. Let's see what else. Someone said Kolek needed that, and he's been putting in the work, and it showed. Yeah, I'm really happy for Kolek. I thought he looked phenomenal. I know his minutes were in garbage time, and it's against the Wizards, but considering that he had dropped 42 in a G League game earlier in the day, and then to drop 11 points in 5 minutes on 3 threes in an NBA game that same night, that's impressive work. Many guys cannot do that. Tyler Kolek Selly is cool. Yeah, his celebration is awesome. I love when everyone on the team starts doing it too when he catches fire. I think it's so funny. Someone said I want him to play more, but as soon as he's out, he's sure to make use of his time for real, for real. Yeah, Kolek is a guy who's proven many times so far this year that he's always able to stay ready, and I really commend him for that because this is a guy whose minutes have been very inconsistent. His rotation spot has been inconsistent. Looked like for a while he was finally cracking the rotation on a consistent basis, and then when Alvarado came, he pretty much lost his spot. So it's not really about his talent; it's just a numbers game, unfortunately. Unfortunately, there's just too many able bodies that are able to play over him. And credit to Kolek, he's always staying ready. So I'm confident that if he ever has to step back into the rotation for whatever reason, that he'll provide a positive impact. Let's see. Someone asked how I'm doing. I'm doing great. I'm doing great, and I hope you guys are all doing very well as well. I appreciate you asking. This is obviously a fun time in basketball world. The NBA playoffs are very close. This is also peak March Madness season, which so far the March Madness tournament has been very good. To everyone who's been saying that the tournament has not had enough upsets or that there's too many of the top seeded teams in there, the games have been great. So if you hate competitive basketball, you can just say that too. Let's see. Let's see what else we got. Someone said, not worried about the 1 seed. Let's get the 2 seed and win it all. Yeah, they pretty much need to just get the 2 seed. I don't expect them to get the 1 seed. If they get the 1 seed, I'll be pleasantly surprised, but I just don't see it happening. Someone said Bridges had a good game. Yeah, Bridges did have a really good game. I am very, again, 14 points in 30 minutes doesn't sound like anything crazy. It doesn't sound like a lot, but considering what Bridges was doing in the games before that, he really needed that. I don't care that it was the Wizards. I don't care if he was playing again. Like I said, I don't care if he was playing against the Westchester Knicks, the Greensboro Swarm, whatever. I don't care who he was playing against. I am just happy that Bridges actually had an impactful game. The plus 28 as a team high, I think that's important because his plus minus was also not very good throughout these past few games, even when he was struggling. So he was just all around struggling. So we shall see. We shall see. Let's see what else. Let's see what else we got. Someone said we need to win Wednesday to take the second seed, and they really should win. They really should win on Wednesday. They have the New Orleans Pelicans coming up, and it's at home. And the Celtics, meanwhile, have the Oklahoma City Thunder. So there's really no reason why the Knicks should not be able to take care of business and get that second seed. Now, of course, if Boston beats Oklahoma City, there's nothing the Knicks can do about that. But it's the Knicks' job to at least stay within striking distance by taking care of business against New Orleans. That's why I said in the last stream that these games matter. That this isn't like, oh, you're playing a bad team, you can kind of just tank the game. or punt it away. No, you have to like treat these games like the biggest games of the season. You have to treat these games like you're playing a truly competitive opponent because you have to win. You have to stack up these wins because you're fighting for a seed. You're not exactly going for you're not you don't have like a seed locked up, you know? So these games matter. Someone said he's gonna get back on track. I feel it. You gotta believe, bro. I'm assuming you're talking about Bridges, and I really do hope so. I really hope he, can turn it around and get back on track. Look, again, I've been waiting. I've been waiting for the day that he turns it around, and I'm still waiting. One game of solid production is a step in the right direction, but it's not a end all be all to the conversation. So I'm hoping that he can get back to making a consistent impact because in the beginning of the season he was doing that. So if he can get back to that kind of player, that changes a lot. Someone said Mitch is the biggest X factor. I agree. I totally agree. Mitchell Robinson has won the Knicks a handful of games by himself, really, with the offensive rebounding and the defensive impact. So if he's healthy and he can play a lot of minutes in the playoffs, that will change a lot. That will really be huge for them. And then now that you bring up Mitchell Robinson, I want to talk about another thing. I wondered in the beginning of the year why they stopped doing the double big lineup. I mean, I understand the rationale at the time because Josh Hart wasn't playing well off the bench and he was playing much better as a starter, so you had to kind of maximize that. But clearly, the best performing lineup the Knicks have had this season is the double big lineup. I mean, every time it's been out there, they've performed really well on both ends, and um, I get it. If you start Robinson alongside Towns, you're limiting your center depth because there's really nobody that's serviceable behind Mitchell Robinson. So I understand the idea of just having Mitch just continue to come off the bench for depth's sake. I get it, but I think we should see a little bit more of the double big lineup, and I think we're going to start seeing more of it. I think we've already been seeing more of it lately, and I think we're going to continue to see it as the season winds down and as the playoffs come because I think Mike Brown really wants to use that double big lineup in the playoffs. So I expect to be seeing that quite a bit. I'm gonna scroll down to more recent comments. Um, that's what I'm gonna do because I don't. If I missed your comment, I do apologize, but there's been a lot of comments. Let's see. Someone said definitely need to focus on early leads and intense energy regardless of the matchup. Yeah, and Mitchell Robinson is a guy who mentioned that in his post-game presser after the Brooklyn Nets game. He pretty much said like, you can't just look at a team and go, "Oh, we're going to smoke them." No, you have to um play with the same energy, same level of intensity as you do at the end of games, at the start of games. The Knicks cannot afford to start out a game slow against say the Detroit Pistons or somebody like that. And I've mentioned that all the time. But that's really the reality. Let's see what else we got. Somebody said scared of facing the Pelicans. They not winning a lot, but they got motivation. I'm not afraid of the Pelicans, but I hear what you're saying. I get your point. That the Pelicans are they're not like the Wizards, but again, the Knicks are a much better team than the Pelicans. So if the Knicks have an issue beating the Pelicans, then yikes. And granted, they have been doing a little bit better lately. The Pelicans have, but their season's over. So the Knicks should just take, and the Knicks are at home. So if they don't take care of business against them, then that's not good. And I'm not gonna make that seem like it's like panic if they end up losing. I mean, they've won 6 in a row, but you want to take advantage of who you're playing. You're playing really bad teams. You want to win against all those really bad teams. And so far, they have won now all these games against these really bad teams. Granted, again, they haven't been the prettiest. Down double figures to Utah, Golden State. Kind of playing a little strugglish against the Pacers the first time, and then second time they kind of blew out the Pacers. But then, of course, the 1 point win over Brooklyn, nearly losing that game, that would have sucked. If they would have lost that game, that would have really hurt. I mean, that would have really sucked if they would have lost that. But thankfully they did not. And thankfully they are playing, thankfully last night that was a very complete effort. Again, wasn't it started out a little slow. It was 38-38 at one point, but I kind of just attributed that to, teams kind of just warming up a little bit. And then pretty much after that first time out, they just blew them out the water. So I was never really worried. I figured that they would, get ahead. So I wasn't too worried yesterday. That was a solid win that I was pleased with. I didn't really have much to complain about yesterday. Someone said, "Anybody notice OG smiling when Kolek was going crazy?" I did see that, and OG is OG is a funny man. He is all business on the court, but when he's not on the court, he's an outgoing dude. You can just see it. He gets along with his guys. He's very funny, so I like OG. He's awesome. Let's see what other comments we got. I'm gonna also check the YouTube and Twitter to see if there's any comments, and I don't see any on there at the moment. So I'll go back to the Instagram. Someone said Bridges got to lock in. Yeah, simple as that. We talk about Bridges all the time, and I don't want to spend the entire stream talking about Bridges, but yeah, if he can lock in and be consistent in a good way, of course, then again, it changes a lot for the Knicks, man. I mean, it's somebody. This is a guy that the Knicks can depend on. So if he's able to be at his best, then the Knicks will be in a great spot. Obviously, he can do what struggle now and not in the playoffs, and it changes a lot too. But I'd rather him figure things out now so that he can enter the playoffs on a high note and feel confident about his role and feel confident about exactly where he is on this team. Someone said everyone owes Cat an apology, and I agree. And you know what? I need to apologize to Cat too. I gave Cat a lot of crap in the first half of the year, and I um even went as far as to say I'm ready for the team to be shaken up when they went on that 2-9 stretch and Cat wasn't playing well. I was very frustrated. We want to win a title this year, so we can't have we got to have everybody on the same page. And obviously in a long season there's going to be guys that go through slumps, but through the first half of the year, Cat was having his worst shooting season of the year. He wasn't playing good on defense. It was a problem. But ever since the All-Star break, he has been a completely different player. And he's honestly been a different player than he was last year. He's being more of a bully ball center. He's being more of a true traditional big. He's still rebounding at a high level. And of course, as I mentioned before, the defense. The defense has been great from Towns. So, with that being said, yes, to that person, to who, let me see who it was that said that, to Isaiah Cunningham on Instagram. He said that everyone owes Cat an apology. Yes, everybody owes Cat an apology. I owe Cat an apology. And a lot of fans, of course, owe Cat an apology. Of course, I want to see Cat perform like this in the playoffs before we go on full stop here, but for what it's worth, playing at this level in a time we need to stack up wins, I'm more than happy with that. So, shout out Cat for that. Someone said, ironic that the hate was so much louder than the praise these days with Cat. I mean, it's just, it comes with the territory. I mean, Cat it has a lot of expectations because he's an all NBA level talent and, of course, is on a very lucrative contract. So, you know, if he isn't playing well, yeah, the noise is going to be loud. And, of course, it's New York. New York media is very intense. We all know that. So, it's just kind of the reality of it, and really, we won't see as much praise with Cat in the mainstream media until he does this in the playoffs or until he leads us to a title. So it's just something we got to deal with. But trust me, I am noticing the improvement in Cat, and I am being very vocal about it on here. I've been trying to be as vocal about it on my Twitter as well, and of course on the Fireside Knicks Instagram, because I do see Cat performing at a much better level, and I'm really happy with that. Someone said, I think if everyone stays healthy, they have the potential to make the finals. Absolutely. Absolutely. Health will be a huge thing. And I think the roster is talented enough to make the finals. Someone said Cat started the year with a quad injury. Yeah, I know, but it was obviously I could attribute the very beginning of the season to that, but then when the struggles leaked into December and January, I couldn't really think of it as the quad injury anymore. So it was hard for me to really attribute those struggles to that. I think it was mostly a mental thing because if he was playing in these games, clearly he was healthy enough to play. I don't think the Knicks would have, with the way the Knicks have managed injuries this year, I don't think they would have let Cat play if that quad injury was really severe. So I think he was just in his own head. I think whatever it was, he was trying to figure it out with Mike Brown in the system. I think whatever it was, he figured it out now though. And he's made a noteworthy sacrifice. He's taking a little less threes and he's being more of an inside big, but I like that. I like the physicality. Inflict some fear into your opponents. Because that was the thing the Knicks were lacking. They had no physicality at the start of the year. Now they do. Now they're starting to show some of that. Let's see. Someone said double big lineup will be huge against a team like Cavs. Absolutely. It goes back to what I said before. I think the double big lineup is their best performing lineup, and the metrics, a lot of the metrics support that. So, with that being said, I want to see more of it. I don't know if they're going to start the double big lineup, and I understand if they don't, just because, like I said, they don't exactly have center depth behind Robinson. It's literally just Ariel Hukporti and Trey Jemison, which yikes. But again, you have a backup center that is very capable of starting and playing 30 minutes, and I think we're going to see Mitchell Robinson play a ton of minutes in the playoffs and get a lot of minutes with Cat. Let's see. To be fair, anyone who knows Cat's career before the Knicks and after this is the best defense we've ever seen with him. Yeah, I've never seen him defend like this ever. I watched him a good amount in Minnesota. Obviously, not every game. I'm not a Timberwolves fan, but you know, I understood how he played. I knew how he played. He's been in the league for a long time. Um, Playing last year, first year with the Knicks, same old Cat. Really good offensively, really bad defensively. This year, though, he's been very good defensively, and he's back to playing at a high level on the offensive side. So, if they can get that defense from him in the playoffs, that would be huge. He's a big reason too why the Knicks have the best defensive rating since mid January. He's a huge reason. Him and Jalen Brunson. I thought Jalen Brunson was fine defensively yesterday. I thought everybody made an impact defensively yesterday. And now we're talking about defense. I want to talk about a certain guy that wasn't expected to be a good defender that has been improved on that end, and that's Jordan Clarkson. Jordan Clarkson stepped back into the rotation and mainly for the offense to provide a spark there. And I think the fact that he has improved defensively, he's putting more effort in on that end, and of course he's hustling on the rebounds. That's the reason why he's still playing because of that. He's making an impact there, and I really am impressed with what Jordan Clarkson has done lately. So I hope that continues as well. Excuse me. Someone asked, "Who do I think is our worst case first round matchup?" That's a good question. I like that. Well, let's see. Right now, they're the 3 seed. I'm gonna pull up the standings right now on my phone just to kind of get an idea of who exactly is in the playoff hunt, what the standings look like currently. So right now, the Knicks are obviously the 3 seed, and the Hawks are the 6 seed. I think the Knicks could smoke the Hawks. So I don't think that's a first round matchup they need to worry about. Philadelphia is 7th. Now, a healthy Philadelphia that includes like Maxey, Paul George, and Joel Embiid, that could give them issues. But I do think the Knicks are better than Philly. But that would definitely be a bit of a competitive series. I'd be lying if I said it wouldn't be. 8 seed Orlando. Orlando is good, but I do think the Knicks are better than the Magic. I think they have just a deeper team than the Magic. They have more scoring than the Magic. The Magic are a little more physical on the defensive side than the Knicks are, but I think the Knicks have more firepower that can ultimately propel them through a playoff series. And then the 9th seeded Miami Heat. Miami Heat definitely be a tough matchup for New York. It's always been in years past, but I think the Knicks are very much easily better than Miami. So, if they lose to Miami, that would really stink. But Miami does pose some issues for New York, especially on the defensive side. Miami is very physical as well. And, if Bam Adebayo can actually start scoring for Miami, obviously the 83-point game is very much an outlier. But if he can actually be a scorer for them, that does present problems for the Knicks if they were to face Miami. Because I think I've always said this about Bam. I've always said if he's an aggressive scorer, if he's willing to take more shots, then that makes the Miami Heat a much better team. And I mean, credit to him. Him doing that made them better, though they have lost 4 in a row. So they started to struggle a little bit. And then the 10th seeded Charlotte Hornets. I think the Knicks should smoke the Hornets. I don't. I know the Hornets have been playing very well. Since the new year, and I know their starting lineup has like barely lost games, but the Knicks are a much better team than the Hornets. If the Knicks have 2 games with the Hornets coming up, and I think in those 2 games they need to prove that like, hey, you guys are cool and all, but we're still way better than you. So that will be an interesting one. But yeah, for the person who asked what the first worst case first round matchup is, if I had to pick one team, I'm gonna say Philadelphia. I think they should avoid Philadelphia if they can. I do think they can beat Philadelphia. I want to make that clear. But they've always had an issue with Tyrese Maxey, and if Joel Embiid is healthy, that can be an issue as well. Although, when is he ever healthy? But still, I think that's the team that if healthy is like, yeah, maybe try to stay away from them. But I don't think the Knicks should duck anybody. I think if you're a title contender, you should not be ducking anybody. So we'll have to just see what happens. Let's see what else we got here. Someone said the Knicks should re-sign Dante DiVincenzo. Well, he's still on a 4-year deal, so if they want to get him back anytime soon, they would have to trade for him, and I don't think they're going to end up doing that. But if we enter whenever he enters free agency again, I mean, I'm sure a lot of fans would be loving it if they brought him back. So I mean, I don't really have any opinion on it. I think if they brought him back, cool. If they don't, whatever. Someone said Cat is playing at an MVP level the past 22 games. I wouldn't go as far as say MVP level, but I mean he's playing at a high level. He's definitely playing at an All NBA level, and I think he's on track to make All NBA once again. Um, Especially with the rebounding numbers and the scoring numbers. So, um, yeah, I'm very impressed with what Cat's been doing though. So, yeah, let's see what else we got. Um, Someone said can't let anyone play in our faces from the bottom of the barrel to the top. Yeah, yep. Pretty much, the Knicks need to impose their will and actually show some physicality and inflict fear into their opponents instead of um, settling. Let's see what else we got. Someone said we will play one of the following 5 teams: Toronto, Atlanta, Miami, Orlando, Philly. Yeah, that's likely who they're going to end up playing in the first round, and really they should beat every single one of those teams. If they lose to any of those teams, we got a huge problem. Even despite me saying that they should try to avoid Philly, they still should beat Philly. So if they lose to Philly, that's still an issue. And if they lose to any of those other teams, same thing. That's a huge problem. Someone said, let's not get it confused. The Hornets are playing above their heads right now. I definitely think the Hornets are overachieving at the moment. I do think this is you know, I think the Hornets are a solid team, but I think they're definitely just playing hot. I don't think that I don't think this is like who they are, quote unquote. I feel like in the playoffs we'll really have an idea, or the play in, if they get knocked out in the play in, we'll have an idea of like who they are. So, um, yeah, but I do think like the Knicks, for example, are just so much better than the Hornets. If the Knicks lose to the Hornets in the playoff series, you know how bad that would be. That would be very disastrous if that happened. They can't let that happen. If they in fact face Charlotte in the first round, of course, there's so many different teams that the Knicks could face in the first round at this moment. Someone said hi. What's up, man? What's up, Maddox? How you doing? Hope you're doing good today. Hope everybody is doing good today. It's a Monday, slow Monday. There's no Knicks tonight, no men's March Madness, but there is women's March Madness if you guys are into that. And yeah, baseball's also coming up. Yankees opening day is in 2 days. I'm looking forward to that for any baseball fans who are here. Someone said can't go into any matchup in the mindset of ooh, scared of those guys. Just mow them all down. Yep, mow them down. I mean, the Knicks are trying to win a title. They know they have to face the best of the best to get there. So if they want to be the best of the best, they can't duck anybody. They should not be looking to avoid anyone. And we know teams in the past, have said that they've always wanted the Knicks. They'll be like, oh, we want the Knicks. They're the easier team. We saw Paul Reed 2 years ago say that they wanted the Knicks because they're the quote unquote easier matchup. And then the Knicks took them out in 6. So the Knicks have done a good job at making their opponents look silly for comments like that. But when teams come out with physicality on the court, sometimes the Knicks struggle with that. So that's going to be the big thing. Will the Knicks show up on the court? They can talk all they want or not talk all they want, whatever, but they have to show up on the court. I'm going to scroll back up to see what other comments from earlier that I might have missed, because I know there was a decent amount of comments that I definitely passed on because of just how many people were commenting at the start of the stream. Someone said, I feel like Cat is inconsistent on defense. That could just be me. Like for a couple weeks, hell of a good defender, and then after that, he'll go back to what he actually is on defense. I hear what you're saying. I do. I totally get that. But I think, just given Cat's history on defense, the fact that we are getting any sort of positive production on that end, we should be happy with because um, he's been historically just a terrible defender. So the fact that we're getting positive production out of him on defense, even if it's not every single game, the fact that it's most games at this point that we're getting good defense out of him, I'm thrilled with that. It changes a lot, him being better defensively. Let's see what else we got. I'm scrolling up a little bit through these comments to kind of just see what earlier ones I might have missed. Someone said when Josh Hart is focused in beast mode, he's so great on both ends. Who knows? He might be our new clutch 3 dog. Yeah. I mean, Josh Hart is. I don't understand why Josh Hart doesn't shoot the ball sometimes. I just never understood it because, like, he's not like, okay, I've said it before. He's not like, this elite shooter, but he's not a bad shooter. So I don't understand why he doesn't just let it fly. You know what I mean? I get it. He's trying to play his role, but sometimes I think he commits to that role a little too much. And it hurts the offense when he's not doing anything. Let's see. I'm going to scroll back down to more recent comments, and I'm also going to check YouTube and Twitter to see if there's any comments there. I don't see any there. I'll answer a few more questions, and then I'll probably wrap this stream up. It's about 3 o'clock over here on the East Coast, so I just wanted to come in and give an afternoon stream and talk about some Knicks. Someone said I think we could smoke Toronto. I think they should smoke Toronto. I mean, they've destroyed them all year. They've won 4 games against them, and I think they have one more matchup against them, so they can go for 5. And I think they should smoke Toronto. I think Toronto is one of those teams where I don't want to say like their last year's Pistons because I think the Pistons last year were still much better than this year's current Raptors team, but it's similar in a way. Like the Raptors are playing well, but yeah, I think that last year's Pistons team was still much better than this Raptors team though. Let's scroll down a little bit to see what else we got. Let's see. Someone asked, can we get the second seed? I think the second seed is very much possible. I think, if anything, I should expect them to get the second seed, given how light the schedule is for them. And because now they own the tiebreaker over Boston for that second seed, I think they should get it. If they don't get the second seed, it is what it is. They just can't fall below 3. I don't want to have to deal with Detroit in the first round, especially if Cade Cunningham is back and healthy. I don't want to have to face them. Not the first round, second round, excuse me. I don't want to have to worry about them in the second round. Let's see what else we got. Shout out to all the people who have joined and are tuning in. I do really appreciate that. I'm going to definitely be making these streams a bit more often with the playoffs coming up. I like doing these, and it seems like you guys enjoy these streams and chatting with me, which I do appreciate. Let's see. Someone said if we win this game, we could take the second seed. Yeah, if the Knicks win tomorrow, I mean, they pretty much, it's their seed at that point because, I mean, they have New Orleans and the Celtics have the Thunder coming up as well. So, really, the Knicks need to just take care of business and win. That's really all they need to do. Granted, again, if the Celtics beat the Thunder, then there's nothing the Knicks can do about that because that's out of their control, of course. But the Knicks need to just continue doing their job. I think they've done a good job at winning these games and doing what they're supposed to do. But we all know the process can overall be better. I thought last night they did a really good job process wise. Scoring 145 points, and I thought in the second half their defense was a lot better. So, I think that was a more complete effort that I want to see more often out of them. Someone said Boston will lose. Just watch. I really hope so. I really hope so. We need to be the biggest Thunder fans coming up. We are all Oklahoma City Thunder fans, and the Knicks have the Thunder coming up as well on Sunday. So I believe they have New Orleans next, and then Charlotte on Thursday, and then I believe after that it's Oklahoma City on Sunday, and then Houston the following day or the following Tuesday. And then they have Memphis and Atlanta thrown in there. So they have a couple easy ones. They have a couple tough ones. I'm not gonna lose sleep though if they lose those West games because um I'm not as worried about the West because as I said in the last stream, they won't need to worry about the Oklahoma City Thunder or the Houston Rockets or San Antonio Spurs, whatever, unless they reach the NBA Finals. So I'm less focused on the West teams, and I'm really just looking at the Eastern Conference teams right now because those are the teams that are directly in their competition and the teams they will have to directly go up against to get to where they want to be. So that's what I'm looking at right now. And I think really the Knicks have the capability of being the best team in the Eastern Conference. They have the capability to be the team to beat, especially if Detroit isn't healthy, if Kate Cunningham is still out. So we'll see what happens. But the Knicks need to just continue what they're doing and winning these games because, again, you got to stack up wins at this point in the year and really put some pressure on Boston. And I think Boston is going to start feeling that pressure a little bit if the Knicks continue to win these games, especially because Boston lost last night, a game that Boston really should have won, considering they were up at one point and that Minnesota didn't have Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle played bad, and they still beat them. So that's a big thing. And I think, of course, the big thing with Boston too is um, Jason Tatum. How healthy is he? How is he going to look? I know he's been kind of struggling on offense since he came back, which, granted, I was never expecting him to drop 30 a game again, fresh off of an Achilles injury, especially coming back that soon. The fact that he's even on the court, I really commend him for that. But the Celtics are pursuing a title. They have playoffs to play, and there's less than a month until then. So, um, that's going to be interesting. How is Tatum's presence going to affect their chemistry? How is Tatum's offense going to affect the rest of them? Those are legitimate questions to pose. Let's see what else we got. If you guys have any other comments or questions or any takes that you want me to respond to or to acknowledge, feel free to leave them. If you're on Twitter and YouTube, make sure you can leave comments as well. And make sure you guys all leave a like on this stream and subscribe to Fireside Knicks on YouTube. And of course, follow Fireside Knicks on Instagram and Twitter. And of course, follow my Twitter. It's Dylan Becker ESM. I will definitely be doing more of these streams. Someone said March Madness was crazy. March Madness has been crazy. Yes, there's been, this is obviously unrelated to the Knicks, but there's been a lot of people saying that this year's March Madness doesn't have any low seeds or any Cinderellas because I believe there's only one double-digit seed into the Sweet 16, and that's Texas, and Texas plays in the SEC. But yesterday we saw a 9-seeded Iowa knock off the number 1 seed in Florida, and there's been some other big teams. I mean, St. John's. I know there's probably a decent amount of St. John's fans in here. That was a crazy game. Winning a game winner against Kansas, knocking off Darren Peterson. That's huge. You know what I mean? I think the tournament's been great, and I think this year, there's really you have the obvious favorites in Duke and Arizona, but I think really any team can come out of it this year. I think there's definitely many other teams that can find their way into winning that national championship. And for the people that have been complaining about the lack of Cinderellas, like I said, the games have been great. Cinderellas to me are only fun until that Cinderella, that random school that you've never heard of, gets knocked out in the Elite Eight. And not just knocked out in the Elite Eight, they get smacked in the Elite Eight. So then it's like, oh well, now we're wasting the prime time of the tournament with with these sloppy games when they're supposed to be the high power games. And again, I'm not saying that I want last year when it was all 1 seeds, the games were good, but I would be lying if I said I wasn't annoyed that it was all 1 seeds in the Final Four. But it's just how it played out. And this year though, it won't be the case. The 1 seeded Florida is gone, and I'm honestly unsure if Duke is gonna make it there. Duke has been kind of playing with their food a little bit the first 2 games. Someone said I got Arkansas in the Final Four, and they said Darius Acuff is him. I could very well see Arkansas make the Final Four if Darius Acuff keeps playing the way he's playing. That kid is tough. So I could definitely see that. And I could even see St. John's making the Elite Eight if they're going to defend the way they play. Someone asked how I feel about Mo Diawara. Diawara, we talk about Diawara all the time, but he's an interesting player because he's very versatile and he's got he's a really good shooter. I think the fact that, obviously him losing his rotation spot, at least temporarily, sorry, I can't talk today, kind of stinks for him, but I think he's shown already multiple times that he's capable of just staying ready and, being an impactful player when he steps on the court. I thought yesterday he looked really good, playing with Landry Shamet out. So I think that's the beauty of the Knicks, and the beauty of the depth they have, that they have multiple guys who are just capable of staying ready, capable of being impactful pieces when they need to be. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Diawara can provide, not only the rest of this regular season, but if he provides anything in the playoffs, because who knows? Mike Brown could very well deploy him at times in the playoffs. Do I expect Diawara to play a significant amount of minutes in the playoffs? Absolutely not. I would be very surprised if he plays more than like 7 minutes in a game. But the fact that he's shown he can be ready and he can make an impact on defense or anything is huge. Someone say, could I see Mo on an all rookie team? Hmm. Probably not, just because his playing time has been so inconsistent, and really his overall numbers aren't like eye popping outside of his 3-point percentage. But he probably won't make an all rookie team, but I wouldn't rule it out either if he can put up some more scoring numbers. I just don't think he's scored enough points to really put himself in that category. I think the rookies this year. I think there's been a lot of good rookies this year in the NBA, so we'll have to just see if he makes an all rookie team. But I'm less focused on if Mo's going to make an all rookie team or not. I'm focused on what he can provide to this current team right now. Someone said McHale stepped up. Absolutely. Yeah. There were some people that were, kind of getting on me because I said I commended McHale for having a good game despite him only scoring 14 points. And I understand on the surface that doesn't look great. And, someone just said McHale's extremely inconsistent. Yeah, I know. I've ripped McHale on here. For the regular viewers on here, they know I've ripped McHale a ton. I've ripped him a ton, almost too much. And again, I keep things real. I always talk about how things really are. I don't, I'm not gonna ever overdo it. If I try not to, at least. Sometimes I get ahead of myself and I do overdo the criticism a little bit. I'll admit it. But again, we have high expectations. So, I'm always going to talk about how it is, but the reality was that McHale has been super inconsistent since January, or really since February, whatever you want to call it. So it's been an issue. And at the end of the day, I do think McHale can be an important player. I really do. I think McHale can be an important player. I think he can be a very positive, productive player for us. I thought last night he was very productive. I thought he was extremely productive last night. Plus 28. Someone just pointed out, don't need to see him hit 30. Just need him to be consistently impactful. Exactly. I don't need him to average 30. I don't need him to even average 20. I need him to just give me a consistent amount of effort each night. Of course, there's going to be nights where a guy stinks, a guy has a one-off. I thought OG Anunoby last night was not good offensively. It happens. But we see that OG, the thing is, OG, he's going to at least provide you an impact on defense, a positive impact on defense most nights. Like, that's the version you're going to get. What Jalen Brunson you're going to get, at least pretty productive offense, if not elite productive offense. Same thing with Karl-Anthony Towns at this point. At the beginning of the year, you couldn't say that. Now, though, you can say that about Karl-Anthony Towns, that you're expecting him to provide you an impact on offense and maybe on defense too. The thing with Bridges is you don't know what you're going to get out of him. You don't know if you're going to get what we got last night, where he put up more shots and made more shots and provided an impact on both ends, or like the game against San Antonio when he had 25 points and hit a bunch of threes, or if he's going to put up 0 points like he did against the Lakers and go on an 8-game stretch where he only scored in double figures twice. We don't know what version of him we're going to get, and that's the problem. I'm not saying that I need him to be I'm not saying that I need him to do everything for us. No, that's not why he's here. He's here to be an additional piece to the rest of the guys and really, just compliment the guys. But the problem, as somebody just pointed out, you don't know. We know how good he is, and then watching him struggle, it frustrates us, because this isn't like Mikal Bridges is not like in his third year in the league or something like that. This isn't like an Obi Toppin thing where you kind of were like waiting for Obi Toppin to really kind of, I guess, break out into that lottery pick that he was, and then he kind of just never really did that. This isn't the same thing. Mikal Bridges has been around for almost 10 years at this point, and he's been an impactful player in the league during his entire career. He was important to that Suns team that made the finals. He obviously was very good in Brooklyn, scoring wise. He put up a bunch of numbers that many people never expected him to put up in Brooklyn. But, in New York, we knew he wasn't going to be that guy in Brooklyn. We were hoping it would be more like a hybrid between like what he was in Brooklyn and what he was in Phoenix. Because in Phoenix, he was an all NBA defensive player. He was, I believe, all NBA first team on defense one of the years in Phoenix. So we know how elite he is on both ends. It's not it's not, oh, we think Mikal is just never gonna be good. No, I think Mikal is a good player when he's locked in. I think he's like I said this before. The idea of Mikal Bridges sounds really good because, it's a 6'6" wing, 7-foot wingspan, good 3-point shooter in the corners, one of the best in the league at that. Really good defensive player, solid finisher, good in the mid range, good at kind of creating. It sounds great. It's just I don't know where his fit is long term. I don't know. And to the people that have said like, oh, he's in a rut, stop criticizing him too hard. Look, I'm not trying to criticize him too hard, but I don't want to, um, make it seem like I don't want to just ignore it because, again, we have huge, 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 huge expectations this year. And in order to reach those expectations, we need everybody to be on the same page, everybody to be locked in. This isn't just like, oh, I want to complain because I want to complain. No, I don't want to complain, and I don't want to come off that way either. I just, I get frustrated when a guy is not performing at the level that I know they can perform at, because I know Mikal Bridges can perform at a high level. You know what I mean? And maybe some people think I'm overdoing it with any criticism, and that's fine. I don't expect everybody here to agree with anything I say. I mean, there's nearly 40,000 people that follow the page on Instagram and nearly 5,000 that follow it on Twitter and YouTube. So I don't expect everybody to agree. That's fine. That's not what I'm here for. But I'm lucky enough to have a platform where I can talk about this stuff with you guys, and um, that's just kind of how I feel. I feel like while Mikal Bridges can be very impactful, I don't know what his long term fit is. I don't, and I won't have that answer until I see more. I thought yesterday was a great step for him. I really do. Obviously, we know he can do more than that. But if that's what he's going to provide, I'll live with that because it impacts winning. You know what I mean? Like that kind of performance yesterday, while on the surface it doesn't look like a lot, the Knicks won the game by 32 points, and Mikal Bridges was a plus 28. Granted, plus minus is a very ticky tacky stat, and sometimes can be a little misleading. But he was impactful yesterday. I thought Mikal Bridges actually was very productive yesterday in his minutes that he played, and if he can continue to do that, that's great. I don't need Mikal to, exert so much energy on offense because we have mouths to feed on offense. We have Brunson and Towns, who are 20 plus point per game scorers. We have OG Anunoby, who's creeping up on 20 points per game. We know we have guys that can score. I'm not worried about that. I don't need Mikal to put up 30 points for me to be satisfied. Because somebody did point that out in the comments. Just somebody pointed out that, oh, with how Mikal's been playing, I think it's time we need to see some 20 plus nights. And that's fine. That's valid. I understand that. But I also don't think it's necessary. I don't think he has to put up 20 every single night for me to be happy. If he can put up an efficient 15 to 14 with good defense, I will be very happy with that. Granted, I understand it's not worth the price we paid to bring him in. It's not worth the 5 first-round picks. It's not worth a $150 million contract. Sure, I get that. But if we're not going to get him to regularly drop 20 plus, then we need to find a way to get some positive production out of him. Some way. And if that way of getting it is him putting up 14 on 6 of 11 shooting and 2 of 4 from 3 with good defense, I'm happy with that. I'm all for that. I am. What I'm not happy with is somebody just pointed out, would you be satisfied if he's playing elite defense but trash offense? Yes, I actually would. Granted, I don't want anyone to stink on offense. I don't. But my thing is this, and this is why I've never gotten too hard on OG, because there's been some nights OG has stunk on offense. We know that's not like his main thing. But he plays good on defense, and he regularly gives you that. There's obviously some other nights he doesn't play good on defense, and we pointed out, but Most nights, OG is going to be your best defensive player. He's going to guard the team's best player, and he's going to impose his will on that end. So we know that. So it's we can look at OG having a bad game offensive. Like look at last night, for example. He only scored 9 points last night. He didn't play good on offense really at all yesterday. OG did, but he was good on defense. The defense was really good yesterday from everybody. So there's no reason for me to sit there and look at OG's stat line and go, well, he stunk on offense, so he stunk yesterday. No, offense isn't the only part of the game. Defense is very important to the game. So if Mikal Bridges, for example, was not playing great on offense, like if he was struggling on offense, but he was doing great on defense, I'll be okay with that too. The problem was during his little slide here was that he wasn't playing good defense either, along with the offense. So he was basically out there just running cardio. And Mikal Bridges, we know, is not exactly a fantastic point of attack defender. That's kind of not his game. He's more like a free safety, and that's fine. We have good point of attack defenders on this roster. OG's obviously a very good point of attack defender. Deuce McBride, when he's healthy, is arguably our best point of attack defender. So we have guys that can guard on ball. So it's not really that. It's just I want what I need Bridges to do is just, as I've been saying, just make an impact somewhere that positively impacts the team and affects winning. Because when Bridges, like I said, when he's out there struggling on offense and he's not doing anything on defense either, what is he out there for? At that point he's taking up minutes. That's why Landry Shamet was taking his minutes for a brief stretch, because while Shamet was struggling shooting, Shamet's shooting has not even been good lately, but Shamet was providing such a high level impact on defense, or maybe not high level, but he was providing an effort on defense. He was getting in defenders' faces. He was breaking up those screens, for drawing some offensive fouls, and all those things. And that's why he was playing, because you felt the energy he was providing. You felt the energizer that Shamet was bringing that Bridges was simply not bringing. And that's why Bridges wasn't playing down the stretch of games. That's why Shamet was taking that spot. That's why. So, to answer that question, as I know I took a very long time on that response, but basically, in short, if a guy, and that it applies for Bridges, of course, because that's who you were alluding to, but even for anybody, if they stink on one end of the floor, but they're doing great on the other end, I live with it. With Karl-Anthony Towns, for example, same thing. When he was, in the beginning of the year, when we were giving him a lot of problems, he was, having his worst shooting season, but he was also not doing anything on defense. Right now, since the All-Star break, yeah, he's not putting up 25 points a game like he was last year, but he's putting up an efficient 20 plus. He's rebounding well, and his defense has improved. And because of that, the Knicks have one of the best records in the NBA since mid-January. They have, I believe, the second best or third best record, whatever it is, since mid-January. They have the league's best defensive rating since mid-January. They're top 5 in net rating since mid-January. They're they're essentially a top 5 offense and defense this year overall on the year. That stuff matters. Basketball is not a one-sided game. It isn't just about how well you do scoring. It isn't just about how many points you're putting up or how many deflections you're getting. No, it's a two-sided game. And if you're struggling on one side of the ball, I want you to make an impact on the other side, at least to make up for that. And, the guys I just mentioned, like Towns, have done exactly that. Bridges was not doing that. And that's the reality. Bridges can easily turn it around and become that kind of guy again, but that's just what it is. That's how it's been. And that's why we've gotten on him. And we don't get on him to make him look bad or to make him look like a fool. But, we critique his on-court play because that's what we're here. That's what we have the privilege to do. And someone said, big fan of your content, by the way. I really do appreciate that. And I appreciate everybody who does like my content, does like this page, does like all this stuff. Because, again, maybe I sometimes say some stuff that no one's agreeing with, or that maybe sounds like it's being too much or overreactionary. But look, at the end of the day, we're here to win a championship, and we can look at some things and go, oh, this is like overreactionary. He'll be fine. This, that, third. We can look at some other things though too, and realize that these are like legitimate conversations we need to have. Because I'm not trying to be the kind of guy that's like, oh, but you're not looking at any positives. Like, no, I think the Knicks are a very good team. I think they're a fantastic team actually at that. I just know they can be better, and I want them to be the best that they can possibly be to win a title, because it's very hard to win a title in the NBA. This isn't like you can't just walk through the we're not the Dodgers, okay? We're not like the Dodgers of the MLB who were able to just steamroll everybody and buy their way to basically a championship, things like that. No, it's tough to win a title in the NBA. And in the NBA, you could easily um just enter a slide and create some bad habits, and that will affect you in the playoffs and stuff like that in the games that matter more. And with that being said, um yeah, that's just how it is. Someone asked if this person's been asking a couple times if OG's made an all defensive team. I believe he has. I'll take a quick Google look right now, but I believe he's made an all defensive team. I would like to think so. I mean, he's one of the best wing defenders in the entire sport, and he's been okay. So I'm looking right now. He made all defensive second team in 2023, and he was also the steals leader that year. And it was I believe that was right before he got traded to us. So yeah, to answer your question, OG has made all defensive team, and so has Mikal Bridges. Mikal Bridges made an all defensive first team in 2022. So we know we have elite defenders, and again, that ties back to the Bridges thing. If he can provide any impact on either end that's positive and can affect us winning games, that's all I need. I don't need Bridges to put up 30 points to be satisfied. I don't. I never needed that. Never did, because I never did I once expect him to be that 25 point per game scorer or whatever it was when he was in Brooklyn, when he first got traded here. I never expected that. I never expected him to come here with that kind of production. Needed a water break after that long monologue, but yeah, I never expected him to be that kind of guy. Not when you have Jalen Brunson on your team, and at the time we had Julius Randle, and then of course Karl-Anthony Towns came before that season began. When you have those kind of guys out there, I never was looking at Bridges and going, yeah, he needs to average 25 points per game like he did in Brooklyn. No, never. I just need efficient games, consistent games, and if you're having an off night on offense, I want you to make an impact on defense. If you're having an off night on defense, vice versa, I want you to make an impact on offense. If he puts up 25 points and maybe his defense wasn't up to par, but the other guy stepped up and the Knicks win the game by 20, that's great. Fantastic. If Bridges is, I don't know, if Bridges is 4 for 13, he has 9 points, but he's making a fantastic impact on defense. Like, he's got a couple steals, he might have a block, or even if he doesn't have that, if he's just providing an impact on defense, putting pressure on ball handlers, getting in passing lanes, and impacting a game that the Knicks maybe win by, I don't know, 5 or 10. I'm okay with that too. I am. What I'm not okay with is when he's out there getting 0 points, not putting up enough shots, and not doing anything on defense, because then it just feels like you're not really trying out there. It feels like you're kind of just running around, not doing anything. Now, of course, we could look at other factors to that as well and say maybe it's Mike Brown's fault. Maybe the scheme is not favorable to him on the offensive side. Maybe they're not passing the ball enough. Maybe he's just not getting clean looks, or maybe he's just not confident. There's many different factors we can look at as to what it is, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I have the answer to why he's been so inconsistent, because I don't have that answer. I can only evaluate what I see on television, and if I ever go to games in person, what I see there. That's all I can evaluate. So whatever we get is what we get at this point. But I don't want to spend too much time not ragging on Bridges, but rambling about him, because we've spent a lot of these past few streams talking about him, which it's reasonable. He's one of the more important players to this team, to our success, so we need him to be at his best. And last night was a step in the right direction. So I'm happy that he did that, and I'm hoping that kind of performance can continue. But anyways, guys, we're over an hour into the stream, so I do think I'm going to wrap up this stream now. I went on a little longer than I anticipated, but that's fine. I love doing these, and I love chatting with you guys. I thought you guys asked some great questions and threw in some great takes as well. I really appreciate everybody who tunes into these streams, and I appreciate everyone who is following this page and following these streams, because I will definitely be doing more of these. And of course, we will have Johnny back on the streams very soon. He was away for a little bit, and then he was under the weather, so that's why he hasn't been with me on these streams, but he will be back very soon. So for those who have been wondering about that, he will be back on here very soon. We'll get him back on here, and we'll do more streams together. But even so, I will still be doing these streams very often as well, and I appreciate everyone who's been tuning in and interacting with me. I love interacting with you guys and chatting with some Knicks about you guys because, we're all here for a common goal. We're all Knicks fans, or most of us are Knicks fans at least, and we all want to win a title. So I love talking hoops with you guys. But anyways, make sure you guys leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube. And of course, follow me on Twitter. It is Dylan Backer ESM. Make sure you follow Fireside Knicks on every social media platform as well: Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, every platform imaginable we are on. I appreciate everyone saying thank you for coming on. Of course, I will definitely be doing these streams more often. I won't make them like a daily thing, but I'll make them pretty often. I'll try to have a more concrete schedule on these streams before the playoffs roll around, just because it seems like you guys really like these. So I'll definitely try to do that. But anyways, guys, I really appreciate everyone tuning in. I'm going to head out. I'll see you guys in the next episode of Fireside Knicks. Peace out. Let's go Knicks.